a massive need for the Chiefs has been filled. Everyone's Jeremiah Love, the 9th pick. He's going to be gone.
Yep.
He's going to be gone before 9. So they needed running back help. We have been talking about the Chiefs needing production at the running back spot since Isaiah Pacheco broke his leg.
Yep.
And is the best way to get a productive running back how they got it with Pacheco? A 7th-round pick who you find and you draft. Yes, that is the best way to do it. But when you have apparently 1 year left to Kelsey, Chris Jones towards the end, and you're smack dab in the middle of Patrick Mahomes' prime, and he's coming off of his first significant injury, sometimes you're going to want to turn around and hand the ball off to a good player. And you're going to also want chunk plays to not have to only come from Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And Kenneth Walker, we saw it in the playoffs. He's got a tremendous amount of burst. And he was, because of the timeshare with Charbonnet, he really wasn't used that much in Seattle. Like, the thing that jumps off of that graphic you showed was the 13 rush attempts per game. Like, that's a very low number. Like, the Chiefs are going to do more than that for sure. And if we show up the explosive runs, he had more by himself than the Chiefs had all of last year. And that was with Kenneth Walker not getting the ball all that much. So assuming Kenneth Walker becomes the focal point of their running game, which for $15 million a year, he obviously will, he should have a massive statistical season next year in Kansas City.
Wow.
I see no reason for him
Massive.
not. Yeah.
What are you thinking?
At least 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Holy cow.
I mean, he had 1,000 yards in Seattle with Charbonnet getting 13 carries a game.
Yeah, so Nick disagrees with this, but we have seen time and time again, running back gets hurt. I mean, you could almost argue this is the Kenneth Walker story. Running back goes down, new running back comes in, either free agent or waiver wire guy comes in and just picks up where the other guy was because the line and the play calling and the system works. The fact that Kansas City was so inept at running the ball makes me think it's not just a Pacheco problem. It was not just a Clyde Edwards-Helaire problem. Part of me thinks it's either a line problem or a play calling problem. When you're down with just the teams these are the only teams that ran the ball less effectively than the Chiefs. Raiders, who have a great running back, we think. Cardinals, Titans, Bengals, Saints, Browns, Steelers, Chiefs. I'm just not sure they were just a running back away, that it's not more systemic, for lack of a better word.
I think that there's probably some truth to that. They hired Eric Bieniemy, former running back coach, offensive coordinator, come in, so he's expected to.
Maybe he solves it too.
He's expected to.
And when he was there, they had a decent run game.
Yep.
Correct. And they're hoping, obviously, that Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey stay healthy together all year, the interior of their offensive line, which should be an elite run blocking unit. So, yeah. And also, sometimes you have to just spend to fix a need. Like they had gotten nothing from that position now for years, and they just signed the Super Bowl MVP. I don't know how you don't like the deal.
I like it. Clearly, they needed it. I agree. Love was not going to be there at number 9. And for Mahomes, when he comes back, even whether it's game 1 or whenever, it's going to help him to have a running back that they can just give the ball to, and he can get them 4 or 5 yards. And Walker showed when Charbonnet got hurt that he can be that bell cow.
Yep.
Like, that's why his numbers went up. Well, and a lot of running backs can't do that. But he can be more than a guy that splits time. Now, he's not a great pass catcher.
No.
But he is a bell cow, and so I think that'll be more necessary. It's been necessary for them, but even more so with Mahomes coming off the injury. So,
as someone who watched Kenneth Walker in every single game he played for the Seattle Seahawks, I can tell you that the team's rushing success was very much a collective effort. This wasn't a one-man show. It was a group of players all doing their part. The offensive line, the receivers like Jackson Smith and Jigba, the coaching staff, and yes, the running backs. They all contributed. I imagine that for many Kansas City Chiefs fans, the first real exposure to Kenneth Walker came during the Super Bowl, or maybe a playoff game or two. And in that Super Bowl, he looked impressive, physical, relentless, exhausting to defend. But I don't want anyone to think that version of Walker was what we saw throughout the entire regular season. He wasn't a bell cow workhorse in the traditional sense. Let's look at the numbers. The Seahawks had a 73% run block win rate, which ranked 8th in the NFL. The Chiefs, for comparison, had a 70% run block win rate, which ranked 25th. That's only a 3% difference. According to PFF, Kenneth Walker was the second highest graded running back behind Jahmyr Gibbs. But when you look at yardage totals, it gets tricky because carries are split between backs. Touchdowns are also misleading. Derrick Henry had 16, Josh Jacobs had 13, but that depends entirely on how offenses are structured and who gets the ball near the goal line. The Seahawks had a great rushing attack overall. Kenneth Walker rushed for over 1,000 yards. Zach Charbonnet added 730 yards while playing 16 games. Walker played 17. But here's where it gets interesting. Charbonnet had 12 touchdowns. Walker had 5. So the distribution was very specific. Both were successful. Charbonnet averaged 4 yards per carry. Walker averaged 4.6. They were in the same range. If we isolate running backs with at least 323 rushing attempts, so guys who were genuinely getting the ball handed to them consistently, Kenneth Walker was tied for 11th with 4.6 yards per attempt. To me, that's a more meaningful metric than total yards or touchdowns. So much of those numbers are influenced by game script. Do you have a big lead and just run out the clock? Are you getting a million carries? Are you the goal line back? Is your quarterback vulturing touchdowns? There's too much noise. That's why I lean on yards per attempt. You can look at the offensive line quality, the types of runs being called, the timing of those runs. Are you in close games where you're just milking the clock in the fourth quarter, which can actually bring down your yards per attempt? It gets messy. For example, Bijan Robinson is an absolute monster, and he was third behind Gibbs and Walker in some metrics. But Josh Jacobs as the fourth best back in the NFL last season? I'm not so sure. He had 13 rushing touchdowns, which is great, but was he better than Jonathan Taylor? Better than Charbonnet? Better than Breece Hall? I think we all know the answer to that. So again, yards per attempt gives you a cleaner picture. All of this is to say, Kenneth Walker is a positive addition for the Kansas City Chiefs. No question about it. But this is not, in my view, a game-changing, team-altering move. It's not like Patrick Mahomes had no weapons and they just went out and got Justin Jefferson. That's the vibe I got from how some people framed this. Like now Mahomes finally has someone to hand off to who can do damage. I just don't see it that way. When Isaiah Pacheco struggled, when Kareem Hunt struggled, it's not obvious to me that inserting Kenneth Walker automatically creates magic. If the offensive line takes a step forward, if the passing game improves and avoids the slumps of recent years, then yes, having a reliable back like Walker helps. But Walker also has a tendency to try to do too much at times, which gets him into trouble. That's a frustration Seahawks fans know well. So again, it's not a negative move. It's not nothing. But it's also not this top of the list, oh my God, they just got Kenneth Walker, let's go kind of acquisition. I don't see this as the difference between winning and losing games for the Chiefs. Let's test that theory. If you have Kenneth Walker now, do you beat the Buffalo Bills on the road? Do you beat the Denver Broncos on the road? I don't think so. Look at Kareem Hunt in that close 22-19 win over Denver, a must-win game. Hunt had 13 carries for 59 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, and a touchdown. That's essentially what you'd expect from Kenneth Walker. Against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, a back-and-forth thriller, Hunt had 14 carries for 58 yards, 4.1 yards per carry. Pacheco had 3 carries for 16 yards, 5.3 per carry. So it's not like inserting Walker suddenly transforms the run game. Compare that to a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. In 2023, they had DeAndre Swift averaging 4.6 yards per carry. Then they added Saquon Barkley, and people wondered how much of an impact it would really have. It was massive. Getting a full extra yard per carry changes everything. That's a game changer. I don't see Kenneth Walker providing that kind of leap for the Chiefs. Now let's talk about yards after contact. This is a key metric because it measures what a back does when he gets hit, how physical he is, how hard he is to bring down. Kenneth Walker ranks 21st in yards after contact. At the top, you have guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry, Javonte Williams, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Tyjae Spears, Zach Charbonnet. Walker is in the middle of the pack, right on the cusp of dropping into the bottom third. That's worth noting. I'm not saying Walker is a bad back. He's not. He's solid. But when you look at the full picture, the offensive line context, the yards per attempt, the yards after contact, the workload distribution, It's clear that this move is more of a solid addition than a transformative one. For the Chiefs, this is about depth and reliability. It's about having another capable body in the backfield. But if you're expecting Kenneth Walker to be the guy that Patrick Mahomes can just hand the ball off to and take a playoff because the run game is suddenly unstoppable, I think you're setting yourself up for disappointment. I don't see it. The Chiefs have needs elsewhere. The passing game has been inconsistent. The offensive line has question marks. Adding Walker helps, but it doesn't solve the bigger issues. It's a positive step, not a giant leap. Those are just my thoughts. I'd genuinely love to hear yours. What do you think about Kenneth Walker signing with the Kansas City Chiefs? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. Whether you agree with me or disagree, let's get some discussions going. Let's have some debates. But ultimately, let's just have fun with it. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love having you as part of it. I want to create something we all feel connected to. Something we're genuinely excited to be a part of. I think we're well on our way. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.